fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Berardelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Berardelli here with you. Flying solo this week. Russ Gallo is at drill with the New York National Guard. Hope you're staying safe, pal, and blowing up some fun stuff. But thanks for tuning into the show, everybody. Check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. We're glad you tuned in there. Hopefully you're there. Or if you're not there, you may be on AM radio, FM radio, the internet radio. Glad that you turned the dial to listen to this little show. Or maybe you're listening as a podcast. We're glad to be along for the ride wherever you may be taking us. Looking forward to another great show. This week, we're going to be tackling the issue of the time, really. Talking about political violence. Talking about the outbreak as the midterm elections creep forward. We're less than a week away this week as the show broadcasts. And we're going to be looking at where did this come from? Where is this headed? Who's to blame for it? And really where we go from here as a nation. Whole lot of heavy topics to talk about. And, you know, if you've been watching the news lately, you've seen political violence breaking out pretty much everywhere. Especially focusing on Florida. I'm not going to say the guy's name on air. I don't want to give him the publicity. But the Florida man who was arrested for allegedly putting together those pipe bombs that were sent all over the country from some area in Florida. I don't know exactly where. But it was sent to D.C., sent to New York, sent to California, to various and high-profile Democrats, including celebrities and politicians alike. And just so happens he's from our neck of the woods in southern Brooklyn in the People's Republic of New York City. I actually have a friend who claims to have been in a softball league with this guy, and that there was always something off about him. And, you know, that's one topic we'll get into, whether political violence is really an epidemic amongst reasonable people, or if politics is being scapegoated to let the fringes have their way and have their moment in the news. We could talk about that as well. And like I said, we'll be talking about this especially in the context of the People's Republic of New York when we talk to Pawl Bazile, who is, for lack of a better word, a spokesman for the Proud Boys organization. Now, full disclosure on the Proud Boys, Russ and I and the gang here behind enemy lines, we were invited and actually advertised at a Proud Boys event of their magazine through an election night party back in 2016. And Russ and I appear on the poster, and we were featured there. We were supposed to broadcast out of there. We didn't really bring our stuff there because we wanted to enjoy the evening instead. Little did we know that we'd be seeing a Trump victory that night when we first walked in there and how historic and monumental it was. But I gotta say, when we were there, and I bring this up during my interview with Paul, the most offensive thing I saw were the Hawaiian shirts that these guys were wearing. And yes, they were crass, they were chauvinistic, and, you know, they were guys having a guy time. There were women at the party as well. I don't want to say that it was, you know, all male. There were definitely women there. We had a group of people with us. Russ's family came along. We had our own Amanda Kohut came with us. Whole bunch of people there. In fact, one of the photos that I treasure the most from my friends comes from that party. And if you look at that photo, and maybe I'll post it later at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, you'll see that it was nothing out of the ordinary. It was a party. But the Proud Boys have put themselves on the front lines against, I guess, their antithesis. I'll get that word right sooner or later. Got to get the Brooklyn out of me, you know? Their opposite being Antifa. Now, again, I'm not here to say who's starting it, who's ending it, and all this other childish, who is more macho nonsense. Not really our place here. It's not what we talk about here on the show. But I will say this. The Proud Boys do put themselves in a position where they will be on a front line and have to respond to violence. To say that they are non-confrontational would be a lie, to be honest with you, at least in my opinion. They are definitely confrontational. You get up in their face and they'll get right back in yours. They're not going to back down. Do they go out seeking violence like Antifa does? And in my opinion, Antifa does. No, I don't think that they do at all. I think that much like in basketball or in hockey or in football, the retaliation is what's caught by the referees, or in this case, the police. You end up with a situation where the initial action is not what is being reacted to, it's the retaliation that's being reacted to. At least in the context of what we've seen recently here in the People's Republic of New York. The Metropolitan Republican Club was trashed, presumably and allegedly, by members of Antifa, who claimed responsibility for it in a letter attached to a rock that was thrown through a window. And then later on, when Gavin McInnes was allowed to speak at the Metropolitan Republican Club in the People's Republic of New York City, there was a protest outside. And after that protest, when supporters of Gavin McInnes, who is the founder and I guess the patriarch, you might say, of the Proud Boy organization, they were accosted and confronted, and depending upon whose version you believe, attacked by members of Antifa. And they responded in kind, and when they responded with extreme prejudice. Let's not sugarcoat it. They beat them down. Political violence, again, listen, I think violence is never an answer. Violence in the name of politics should never, ever happen. I'm here to tell you, we denounce violence on the show. As much as Russ and I joke about, trauma in the bathroom and now you can't leave and things like that we say, quotes from various movies. Neither one of us want to see anyone on either side of the aisle hurt. We have friends on both sides of the aisle. Locally in politics, nationally in politics. We enjoy conversations with everyone. We never want to see anyone get hurt because of what they believe in. If they're fighting evil, in the sense of, terrorism and things of that nature, where, your life is at stake and you're fighting for survival. And, like Russ would do when he was over in Iraq, that's something totally different than politically motivated violence. There's no reason that someone should take an election so seriously that hands get thrown. And, we've seen this around the world. I mean, the recent election in Brazil, the winning candidate, who ends up being a far-right conservative, it's happening all over the world, folks, was stabbed by an opponent on the campaign. We don't want to be like that. There's no place for us in the world like that. That's not smart to do. So, where does all this come from? It comes from the place where it always comes from. It comes from the crazy, folks. It comes from people who are looking for an excuse to do something sinister. They're looking for an excuse to do something violent. These are the people that already have malice in their heart, and something triggers them. And as we've seen, politics on both sides of the aisle can trigger the crazy. We saw with Steve Scalise and other members of Congress who were shot at a ball field we saw the crazy trigger there was the ideology of socialism, of Bernie Sanders. Now, no one has said Bernie Sanders is personally to blame. In fact, the guy was a volunteer for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, to his credit, went on television and said, this is not a value of mine. This is not what we believe in. I personally denounce this violence. And again, no one on the right, at least the sensible right, should be talking badly about a movement being violent, at least when it comes to socialism. I mean, listen, we can disagree with socialism as an ideology. It's wrong for our country. Collectivism is never a good thing. We haven't seen it work anywhere in the world. But to say that it promotes violence against conservatives is just wrong. The same way it's wrong to say that President Trump's crass, and you notice we're using the same words about the Proud Boys, crass and possibly chauvinistic and, arrogant and audacious manner triggered this guy, Florida man, to go and send pipe bombs out everywhere. It just doesn't hold water, folks. And talking more about violence and politics, this is where hypocrisy comes out as well. Again, it's become more about point scoring for your side than it is about getting things done in government nowadays. What we're seeing now from the left in response to these bombings is not unity. I saw some photos of a unity rally, quote unquote, in California. We call the People's Republic of New York here. I guess we'll call them the Socialist Republic of California. A unity rally put on by socialists, and what are they doing? Being divisive. Trump must go. Trump and Pence must go. And all sorts of denigrating signs and statements being bandied about in the name of quote-unquote unity. You want to talk about real hate in politics? And things that shouldn't be involved in politics? Of course, violence is one of those things. I think everyone should agree on that. But here's something everyone doesn't agree on. Why is someone like Louis Farrakhan involved in politics? Why is he not called out on the left? We just saw in Pittsburgh this week a synagogue be shot up by a very hateful individual that no one should claim as their own. This wasn't an act of violence from the left or the right. This was an act of violence of hateful, demented, thuggish people that has no place in civilized society. Let's call it out for what it is. Anti-Semitism has no place in our society whatsoever. But yet, Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam can go around on Twitter and say, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm anti-termite. Talk about hateful rhetoric, and yet Twitter didn't do anything to punish him. His account's still around. Our friend Bruce Carroll, a.k.a. The Gay Patriot, will get kicked off and permanently banned for claiming something about a fellow gay person. I think it was Chelsea Manning or something like that. But Louis Farrakhan likens Jews to termites and satanic Jews and all this stuff. And he's allowed to stay on. And no one on the left will call him out for it. That is something that bears further discussion in politics and political circles. We could talk all we want about how a man with multiple prior arrests, who his family has described as being mentally unstable, and one former employer actually said he may be suffering from steroid rage. Again, all speculation. We could talk all day about how someone living out of their van can attach themselves to an ideology, no matter what it may be, and act out as a result of attaching his sick, twisted mental illness